So in the immortal words of my favorite operating system, let's start. We're going to have 20 minutes to talk about hardening your Azure AD tenant. It's not that hard. It's not going to be really technical. It is going to be fast-paced. And the way that we're going through this topic is just, that's the first person already leaving, right? Oh, it's not that technical. I'm out of here. Cool. It's got to be a bit technical, not the marketing fluff or anything like that. And it's fast-paced. I've got 4 topics that I use as a structure. So we're going to talk about the secure score for identity, which is a new feature in Azure Active Directory since today. And it's in preview. It's about limiting privileged access because I feel that every default Azure AD tenant has got some access for non-privileged users. That is actually some kind of privilege that you might want to limit if it's not in your business best interest. Then, of course, there's the limiting the privileged accounts, so the people that actually have to do stuff in your tenant and allow them to actually do that stuff and not anything more or less, but be able to be on top of that as an admin in your organization. And then, of course, we're going to talk about auditing your tenant. Now, as I'm talking to organizations, there typically seems to be only 3 types of organizations. And I've tried to categorize them with their answers in terms of, do you have an Azure AD tenant? And the most common response is, yeah, we don't have an Azure AD tenant. But that's wrong. Yes, you do. If there's any person in your organization that used their email account to answer to any invitation for, I don't know, a Power BI dashboard or a SharePoint site, there's a Microsoft managed tenant for your organization already. And then there's the second type of organizations. And they say, you know what, we're completely in control. All right. And that's because they synchronize their on-prem Active Directory to Azure Active Directory. But even if you do that, there's certain attributes, like multi-factor authentication attributes, strong authentication details. There's no on-prem significant other for that. If your Azure AD tenant suddenly is gone, that information is gone as well. It's not sourced from Active Directory, it's just gone. So you're not completely in control, I'm sorry, buddy. And the third type of organization, and I love these guys, especially since I'm from Europe, so in terms of GDPR, these organizations have to tell you that, yeah, we manage Azure AD for our organization. And yet you have colleagues, I don't know where, that actually invite others to your organization's applications and services and resources in Azure AD. And now all of a sudden, you've got, I don't know, 1,000 B2B accounts from other organizations linked to your tenant that you're now responsible for. If your Azure AD tenant, for some reason or another, is gone, your business will have to recreate all that stuff. So there's a lot of misconceptions with organizations today that I feel that we could address better than we do with current marketing and current communications. So let's look at how we can do that. And we're going to look at Identity Secure Score first. An Identity Secure Score is a service to admins. So just a show of hands, who is the corporate admin or the global admin for their Azure AD tenants? Cool. So this is a present from Microsoft for you guys and gals. So what you can do is it will give you some smart recommendations to help you further your Azure AD tenant security. And it's smart, it's specific, it's actionable, it's measurable, it's realistic, and it's time-bound. So now you can actually show your manager, you know what, you come up with these crazy ideas, and Microsoft ranks that as 0. And the other part, and that's fun for me, is you can benchmark your Azure AD tenant based on the Identity Secure Score. Now, of course, this is all marketing fluff, and yeah, we heard about that. How does it look? How does it feel? What does it do? So Let me demo that for you. So let me switch to my other desktop, and I got Firefox in here because everybody's using Edge or Internet Explorer, but that's no fun. I use Firefox and I use the Azure Mask plugin, so you don't get to see all my sensitive information in real time. I love that. I love my GDPR. So let's go to my favorite website, and you might not know that, but that's aad.portal.azure.com. So all of you, who knows that URL? Yeah, it's great, right? Let's go there, because you've got the normal portal, and this is the normal portal, but just with some Azure AD stuff, and not all the other stuff that we don't care about, like virtual machines and stuff. Let someone else manage that. So let's log on, and I'm going to use my admin account. That's my account that I use. It's my name, so kind of makes sense. So let's log on. Okay, so I have to admit, this is not a best practice. I stored the password for this account in the browser, and that's because, you know, there's 200, 300 people here. It's probably people watching the live stream too. I don't want to mess up my demo by fat fingering a password, so I just stored it here. And it's just an admin account, so I have to do MFA anyway. So let's do that. Let's see if I got a code. Here we go. Let's enter that, and we're off. Here we go. So this is what I told you guys, right? This is the Azure AD portal, but it's just the Active Directory stuff. No other distracting stuff, no other resources to do. And while in the tenant, let's click on Azure Active Directory, and here we go. As you're a global admin, this is all familiar, right? From here on. Let's scroll a bit down, and here we go. Here's the identity secure score. It's in preview, so that's okay. Let's click on it, and immediately there's the score, right in your face. You're a 96 out of 223. Ah, that's not good, is it? Well, let's look at the benchmarks. So out of all the other tenants that are in the services industry, I like that, the services industry. Okay, so they're typically at 39. So yeah, I'm way above that. And for other typical 0 to 5 person tenants, how can you have a 0 person, well, never mind. 0 to 5 person tenants, it's 24. So I'm doing pretty good. So let's scroll down a bit, and here's the smart recommendations that they've been telling you about, and let's look at one of them. So let's pick, I don't know, 2 or 3. So here's an interesting one. Enable the policy to block legacy authentication. Here you go. So what does that give me? So it says, score impact, if you do this, you get 20 points. Good, I like points. I'm an Xbox guy as well, so give me those points. 20 points, my current score is 0, all right. And the max score is 20. And, oh wait, user impact is moderate. So perhaps I should communicate something, right? Okay. Let's look at another one. Oh, right here. Enable all users are registered. So user impact suddenly is high, and the score impact is only plus 15. Oh, that first one sure sounds better. So let's look at another one. Here it is. Do not allow users to what? To grant consent to unmanaged applications. So the score impact is plus 0. Okay, so we can forget about that. I already have the maximum score for that, so I'm good to go. So you guys see how this works? It really is quite easy now to harden your Azure Active Directory, because Microsoft is guiding us all the way. We don't even have to think about that. Well, let's log off at least. I'm signed out. Cool. Let me go to the following one, because this is easy stuff. This is level 100, right? We don't think this is hard to do. But there's a couple of things that are not, or not yet, part of the identity secure score that you might find surprising in your default Azure AD tenant. And that's a moving target, by the way. So I got all the settings that I feel awkward with, the settings that I talk to organizations with, and say, you know what, we might need to think about that. In terms of business, there's no real interest for you to have these features enabled. And it's a lot of them. I've got 2 slides with settings like this. And the default ones are, well, for this, these are the default ones that we changed for Azure AD tenants a year ago. Now, as we're moving along, Microsoft is also enabling a couple of these settings as well to make your Azure AD tenants hardened. But it only enables those for new Azure AD tenants. So when is an Azure AD tenant new? Well, if we go back to the 3 Azure AD tenant types we had, if the first colleague in your organization accepts that B2B invitation, that's when your tenant was created. So if that was 3 years ago, you get the settings from 3 years ago, not today's settings. So you really have to look at these settings, and we're going to look at them in the portal anyway, so I don't have to spend a lot of time with this. But there's some real settings that explain why, as an Azure AD tenant, for instance, or a global admin tenant, that why are all my domain joined computers in my Azure AD tenant? What are they doing there? Well, that's the little setting for joining devices to Azure AD through a hybrid Azure AD join. So that explains why they're there. The second slide of privilege access is for guest accounts. Now make no assumptions on guest accounts. In on-premises Active Directory, these are users that are useless. They can't do anything but log on. But in Azure AD, a guest is basically the same as a user. And it's even worse, because by default, guests can invite other guests. It's the gift that keeps on giving. And of course, inviting a guest is not always that apparent in Office 365 services. And as you'll see, as Microsoft is starting to roll out their LinkedIn integration into Azure AD, what will happen is that in Word or in Excel, a user will actually just click on the share option, see a button that says, oh, share it with my LinkedIn contacts. That sounds awesome. Click on the button. Oh, here's all my LinkedIn contacts. Let's send it to Pete and Hank, and oh, there you go. Send it. That stuff creates guests in your Azure AD tenant as well. So now you end up with thousands and thousands and thousands of B2B guests. Awesome. It's no wonder Azure AD has over 1 billion accounts now, don't you think? So let's look at the tenant. So what I'll do is log on, and yeah, this is where I have to explain a little thing. So there's 2 accounts, right, that I stored passwords with. It's my own account, and I have to admit, the top account is the account that I created for my cat. So my cat needs food. So I thought, you know what, with Alexa and Cortana, wouldn't it be wonderful if we just said meow, and there will be new food delivered to our doorstep? So I thought, you know what, my cat needs an Azure AD account, obviously. Now, as you scroll on the internet, what you'll find, and you know what, everything on the internet you read is true, so cats can be jerks. So who better than to use my cat as the malicious insider that is going to use one of their privileged accesses to find out what you could actually see in a default tenant that's not hardened with the boxes that I showed you earlier. So let's log on with Moby, my cat. And what you'll see is that Moby has all the information in the Azure AD portal just like that. There's not even a thing grayed out here. And if we look a bit deeper, if we click on Azure Active Directory, then yeah, here, the first gray items start to appear. That's hidden from view. You don't have to be there as a normal user, but there's a whole lot of things that are not grayed out. So what's up with that? Let's look at, let's scroll down a bit first. let's look at user settings, right there on top. User settings, and what you'll see here is enterprise applications, where we're gonna view that later on. It's app registrations, so user can register applications, and even worse, restrict access to Azure AD administration portal. If I flick that switch as an admin, my cat won't be able to figure out all these settings anymore. So that is, to me, one of the basic hardening for Azure AD tenants. So let's look at what that tooltip said. So this is not a hit or miss process. If you want to, there's text from Microsoft that will guide you through what each of these switches will do. So you can read up on that. Some of these tooltips even have links, so you can even read even more and spend even more time not doing work, but reading. So that's always good. But let's look at the manage external collaboration settings as well. And there's no LinkedIn yet in this tenant, but there's a couple of things that, to my cat, is really interesting, because now he knows that if he gets the other cats in the neighborhood into the tenant, these cats can bring their cat friends too. So now the cats in the neighborhood can take over my tenant if they want to. So let's prevent that as well by just playing with these switches and doing that. Let's go back to Azure Active Directory and let's click on devices, because this is where a lot of organizations don't feel that they are in control the first time they actually see this list. So there's a couple of devices here. These are Azure AD registered, Azure AD joined, or hybrid Azure AD joined devices. So in typical organizations with Windows 10 devices and recent versions of Azure AD Connect, this list will feature all the domain joined computers in your organization by default. But we're not after that yet. It could be really useful information for insiders in your organization, but it's not that bad. So let's look at device settings, and this is where you see that these devices come from. Because by default, it says using my joint device to Azure AD, and using my registered device with Azure AD 2. So what does these two options do, right?